All right, so Ricardo, I did not get a chance to watch Zootopia 2. I know that we talked about the first one when it came out back in 2016, but for me, I'm not sure why, because I know I really enjoyed that film, but for some reason, I never recapped that film enough. So
Right.
I wasn't overly excited when I saw the first trailer for Zootopia 2, and I actually really dug that trailer. I guess it's because I saw it a few times in theaters, right? That whole that music video slash opening title sequence esque kind of trailer that they did. It's just the music and just the characters just sort of running from place to place. It feels like you're watching some opening title sequence. I thought that trailer was really good though. But point is, I just wasn't excited to see a sequel, right? And I know that show has been the first film has been praised, since it came out. But again, I just never got around to rewatching it, right?
Right.
But I feel like if I do rewatch it, I'll be like, oh, that's why people love it so much, right? So that's not to say that I don't want to rewatch the first film. Of course I do. It's just that, because I wasn't too excited to see this one here. But I already know that this show, the sequel here, Zootopia 2, have been getting a lot of praise since it come out, right?
Right.
One reviewer on Roger would actually give it a full 4 stars. Like, okay. But
Right.
again, it's just haven't seen the first one in a long while, and just time just got in the way. So unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to see it, right? But yeah, Ricardo, you will have to let me know how great this movie is, if it deserves to be in people's best of, like, even if it's a top 10 list or whatever. But yeah, Ricardo, take it away. But before we start, you could just let me know how you still feel about the first film.
Yeah. The first one was pretty good for what it was and what it was trying to say at the time, especially. I don't know if I won't say it aged like milk necessarily as a whole, but there's a certain thing in it that ages like milk. In terms of like the central premise and conceit. And this movie, this as the sequel goes, kind of sidesteps that. They very, I think, very intelligently um updates the conceit of what they were trying to go for. With respect to the first film, they set up a conceit, and without saying spoilers, they do like another allusion to what the central conceit of the first one is, which is well, effectively, well, the idea of race. This first one was, I think for the most part, smart because you still have to cater to young children. Um, the core idea of what you're trying to say with respect to its central premise on race. And this one, but the problem with it is that they, unfortunately, had to allude to like, well, the idea of the police and police being the solution to the problem, kind of thing. And yeah, Americans politics, at least progressive politics, shift vastly since then. But with this one, they say no. All right, like take the same premise and then build from it. And this in many ways could have been the first one, but because they had to like, it still works as a sequel because of the evolution of the two main characters. Well, I forget the bunny and the fox name right now. It's just off the top of my head, it's escaping me. But what they allude to is quite intelligent, and also it have a lot of great callbacks from the first film that serves the plot quite well, and then a couple of like corny cinema callbacks that had me surprisingly cracking up. Right. Only nitpick with this is that the big reveal. There's a big plot reveal. That I felt a little flat. I felt I could have punched up a little bit, but other than that, this is still pretty good. The thing is, I don't get into spoilers to talk about what the main conceit is. But I suppose I'll say it's not what they try to allude to is not so much Tulsa, Oklahoma, if you know the reference, but it's more like Lake Lanier. That is all I'll say. I'll leave it there, right? Um, that's about it. And they get into like the idea of different types of quote unquote allyship and why that allyship falls apart or doesn't work in its own way or why it works and what you have to do or why it fails in certain senses and the idea of it. It still strikes a decent enough balance of not being too on the nose but also playing with the illusion smart enough to make it work as it is. But they kind of had to like shift a central conceit because of the for plot reasons, right? And but it still works for the most part, right? And they answer a couple like world building questions at the same time to address this going forward. Overall, yeah, really solid sequel actually. You know, as I said before, great callbacks on the first film that serves the plot really well. Very smart, updated the conceit, the corny cinema callbacks. Again, I don't want to spoil the joke. But you'll know it when you see it. It's like, oh right, this is very blatantly a reference to this, and they kind of play with that as a joke, or they'll have a one-off joke. I suppose I could spoil a quick joke. There's a Ratatouille reference in this, and it's really funny. I know a couple of references, but it's still pretty good.
Hmm.
Voice acting pretty good. One of the characters I swear was gosh, was I forget the actress name, but Odu Adebi.
Or
Uh,
Udu
Crazy Eyes.
is it Adabiri boy? But can we
Yeah,
talking about
Crazy,
from from
Crazy
Orange is the
Eyes.
New Black? Yeah.
Yeah, Crazy. I really thought that was her, but it's not her. Some YouTuber apparently I never heard of before.
Okay.
Who's that? So like, whatever. But that's about it. But all the other voice actors, Jason from what do you call him, Arrested Development, Michael from Arrested Development, uh, everybody was good. Everybody was fine. They bring back everybody. They bring back Shakira. they bring back all the people. They bring back. I think that is what do you call him. The fellow who's the boss now. He had a little
Oh,
small in the
I
beginning.
know. Is it Idris Elba? Yeah, I
Idris
know.
Elba, right? Yeah,
He's in
yeah,
that
yeah,
film.
yeah. They
Yeah.
bring back everybody. They bring back all the boys. But it wasn't a big part. He just had something in the beginning. Had to get rid of him early in the plot line. Not dead, but something happened to him. Yeah, to the story. Uh, yeah, and then the main conceit of it is good. It's good world building. They make it work. They tell the story. I dug the hell out of this one. I didn't expect it. I wasn't going because I kind of like this kind of slipped past my radar. Oh yeah, right, this coming out, and I forget kind of clean that this was coming out, and then like, oh yeah, it come out, and I went to see it and enjoyed. Um, yeah, solid outing. Rating, yeah, get like a good score. It'll probably make an honorable mention for the NDA or even top rank. But it's really a really smart evolution of the conceit and they make it work. Yeah. Yeah, written 8 out of 10. Pretty good out in what it was. So we had to get into the spoilers of it, but it had nothing to like really talk about super much other than the execution of certain things and certain ideas, and that was about it. And they make it work. Just uh, that's about it. Nothing else to mention actually. That's it. Yeah.
All right. So speaking of 2016, that was the year where we talked about our first Park Chan-wook film. That would be The Handmaiden, right?
Right.
Which
Right.
made it in our well, it didn't make it to my top five though, as far as best films of 2016, right? But it was a film that I thoroughly enjoyed, right? And I'm saying this right
Right.
because the next show we're going to talk about here is No Other Choice. Now we will have to
Right.
keep things spoiler free because this movie is going to be coming out theatrically in the States Christmas, right? Well, they say Christmas
Right.
in the trailer, so I'm assuming it's Christmas Day, right? And what a day to drop that movie though, huh? When you really think about it,
Right.
right? But yeah, I was hearing about it through its premiere at TIFF. A couple of reviewers I saw, on RogerEbert.com, talked about it as well. They were hyping it up. Well, they didn't mention it, but like in other reviews, and you will see it later on, especially leading up to the release of it, the official release, and afterwards, right? Yeah, they're gonna compare this movie to Parasite, right? I can understand
Yeah.
why,
A lot
looking
of
back at it,
parallels.
but
Yeah.
they did two different films, right? But
Oh yeah, yeah,
and
different.
just
But,
just
but it have a lot it have enough workable parallels to see
it
why
it
people compare it.
does, yeah, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not just because it's from South Korea, right? It's just about financial
No, yeah, yeah.
here
The
with
core
that,
teams, yeah. Not
yeah,
the ideas, yeah.
financial inequality. That's the term, right? Yeah, where
Right,
basically it's about characters who literally bust their ass, they're working hard to feed their families, and they just reach a point in life where it's like, we bust we ass, and how come we not getting anything? What going on? But why this other person doing better
right,
than me? And then that resentment comes in, right? But yeah, for me though, just I'll get to the synopsis, right? I went in completely blind into this, right? I just saw a
right,
shot, just an image of the lead character doing something. I was like, that look interesting. That look
right.
interesting, right? But I went in completely blind, right? So what the show is about in a nutshell, trying to keep things spoiler free, right? Is the character we introduce the character of Yo Man-soo, right? Who is played by a guy who appeared in Parasite, but also appeared
Yeah,
in Squid Game,
Squid
right?
Game.
As the villain, right? That would be Lee Byung-hun,
Right.
right? Yeah. So he and his
Yes.
family, and they set this up very well in the beginning. They seem
For
to
some
have it like
reason,
really good though, you know what I mean? But that before we get to the but, right? So he has been working at this paper mill for like roughly 3 decades, right?
yeah,
And
well,
he,
yeah.
yeah, and he is fired. Well, he's let go, not fired, but he's let
Like,
go. You know, it's just
the
that,
company is bought out.
yeah, by
Like
these Americans, right? And he
right.
just they're like, all right, well, I need to find another place, right? And he does try another spot, a retail spot, right? But it's like that's not for me. No,
And I enjoy
the
it.
paper stuff is my thing, and that's a recurring theme in the show. It's like, listen, if this is my job, this is my job. Like, I can't do anything else, and I could totally understand that, right? Even though it's something that I kind of disagree with, you know, you could kind of try something else, but that is easier said than done, right? So yeah, point is he want to try another company, right? But there are other former employees of that same company that he was let go of that vying for the same spot, right? This big managerial spot, right? It's like, oh well, all right, well if these people, you know, go in for that spot, well, I had to eliminate the competition, and we see how he goes about it, right? And it's set up early on that he's very inept when it comes to these things, but yeah, he gets murderous, like straight up murderous when it comes to this stuff, right? But
Right.
it's what's going on behind the scenes and what it all leads up to though just adds to just the beauty of this film, right? So before I share my thoughts on the film, right? So Ricardo is somebody, well, I just wanted to start off with this, right? Did you even hear about this film? Because I just threw the title out to you. I told you who the director was, right? So is it that you
Right.
knew about the film or you was hearing about it or you just saw, oh, Park Chan-wook put on a new film. Okay, I need to check this out.
Yeah. I was in very little scuttlebutt. Again, slightly off my radar. I was like, oh yeah, right, it's coming out. It was on my radar. Forget about it, and then it come back on my radar. I was like, ah, okay, and to watch it. Okay, cool. That's about it. I don't like have some super hype for it. Just before we continue, I just want to say that for some reason, Lee Byung Hun looks a lot like Burn Gorman Gottlieb for some reason. Like he's really remind me of
Oh,
that guy watching this
the
man.
feet. No, is something about the
That
mouth.
face,
Yeah,
the chin, the jaw.
the
Yeah,
chin. Yes. Mm-hmm.
yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking, because I just watching man face, and I thinking, for 2 seconds, I'm thinking, well, it's him, but like they do some like AI nonsense stuff. I'm like, what? No, that's him. Looking like him in true. Whatever, that's about.
Yeah, but well, before I get to my thoughts, yeah. So Ricardo, what are your thoughts on No Other Choice?
I enjoy this. As I said, off the top of it, I was thinking Parasite the entire time. It's like, yeah, but it's his Parasite now, his take on a Parasite, kind of, or his version of a Parasite. It felt like that. I mean, I was a little reductive, but yeah, you get the point. I was just thinking of how the not so much the bitterness and just the idea of resentment and that aspect of it, and they play into that a lot. And there's a lot of great like shots and references to it. You know, this remind me of a little bit, and it had a couple shots like this. It reminded me of the movie The Descendants, with George Clooney. Right,
Oh,
it have a
right,
lot.
which I haven't seen in a long while.
Right,
From
but
Alexander Payne, great film. Yeah.
right, it have a couple of shots that just look a lot like that. Like it have these shots where it cut the screen in half, and then they do something and something else going on, and it's the characters running around, and they do this. He do this real cool framing thing where you have something going on, and then you cut it like you also a road, but the road going one way and then the character another way, and it's just cut straight down the middle of the road. But it's like a big curving shot, stuff like that. I was like, oh yeah, the one movie that totally reminded me of was The Descendants. I was thinking of that, and stuff like that. It's probably one of the films that I can't remember off the top of my head that do the same thing. But that I was thinking of. I was just thinking of uh just these great shots, great ideas. The core conceit is great. Like it have you going. Not as I don't think it's as good as Parasite, but it's up there. It does this again. It does the whole capitalism sucks, inequality stuff really well. And they play with that really well. But they update it in a smart way, given what his job was, and especially with what relevant right now. Not so much necessarily directly with LLMs, but automation, right? They play with that a lot in this, and it's like okay, and then yeah, I find the ending not a hard gut punch, but it's like a clever. I find that was like a really like clever ending, and it's like
Yeah,
okay,
I'll
this
no lie. Yeah, that
continue.
ending caught me
Yeah,
completely by surprise. Like, I
right.
was like, wait, nah,
Yeah,
we really gonna
yeah,
end the film like this? But then the more I thought
yeah,
about it, like that actually
yeah. It
makes
makes sense.
sense. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, that's sobering, very sobering ending kind of thing, and it works for the most part. But yeah, I dug this. I didn't super love it, but I dug it. I was like, yeah, this he cook here. This is well done. Not as great as what do you call it oh gosh,
Not the
The
handmaiden.
Handmaiden.
Yeah,
The Handmaiden, which in my humble opinion was a masterpiece, but like
yeah.
this was like really, really, really solid.
Right. Well, for me, I would say I enjoyed this a bit more than Decision to Leave, which we talked about
Right.
back in 2022, right? Which is a show I really, really need to rewatch, though. I have
Right.
to remind myself if it was nominated for Best International Feature. I don't think it was, or
Right.
maybe it was, but I know it didn't win, right? But yeah, no, I don't think it was nominated at all. That was like a big snub for me, right? But yeah, I really enjoyed this though. But I guess for me, it's because I went in blind, right? For one thing, Park Chan-wook, boy, this guy. One thing I really you have to admire about this guy, right, is how he puts a lot of thought and care into every shot where the characters are blocked.
Yeah.
Everything that you see here, right? They are in camera VFX shots, and I'm watching this like, how you do this? You know what I mean? And how like dog like this, the editing in this is kind of perfect in my
Yeah.
opinion. The transitions though are perfect in my opinion, right?
Yeah.
And just these clever like blocking and framing moments as well too,
Um,
right?
one movie that came out that was his. That was his boy. With the one with the like the two detective work and on the beach.
That,
What's
that
the name of
that's
the movie?
Decision to Leave. That was him. That was
This is
him.
really right, right,
Yeah,
right, right. That
yeah,
was
yeah.
it.
And
Yeah, but
it was
that had a
just
bunch of like that had a bunch of like TikTok-esque kind of transition kind of things, and
yes.
that was so clever at the time. I thought that was really like interesting for him to use in that movie.
Yeah.
In the way he did. Right, right. Okay, yeah. Right. So it's him, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
remind me.
And speaking of that though, there's a shot. There's so much great shots in this, right? But there's one
Yeah.
involving an iPad, right? And shout out to YMS though, because he actually like pointed this out too, because he was wondering how they
Okay.
actually filmed this, right? Because yes, it's
Right.
from the perspective you're seeing it like just the character holding the iPad, right? But it
Right.
moves, so you're seeing the reflection, but it's like how
Yeah.
to get that seamless movement from point A to point B without
Yeah.
with while holding the camera shut though. You know what I mean? It's one of those shots that you had to kind of watch and be like, how they do that? Because what
Right.
YMS said is like basically maybe the iPad would have been on the camera itself, but probably not,
Right.
right? But it's like just one of many great shots in the film, right? There's one scene involving loud music that was kind of genius in my opinion. And I know it's post production, right? It's a good thing that it's post production, because that way you could get a chance to make sure that you hear the person's vocals, right? But in the context of what's going on, it make a lot of sense, right? But to me, the key of it all working is byung-hun's character himself, right?
Yeah.
And just how inept he is in terms of doing these murders, right? This
Right.
so the shot I was mentioning was him holding the vase, right? You know, this large
Right.
vase,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
That
Yeah,
that that is like that's going to be all over the marketing of this movie, right?
You
Just
know?
letting you know.
Yeah.
But there, what I saw, I was like, oh, this is how this character gonna go out, right? But not gonna say what happens here. But I love how the film actually subverts that, right? But it's just a matter of this is how far this man is gonna go. He just gonna look not so much look for any opportunities. It's like, all right, I think this could work. So I could go right here and I could try this thing because I don't want to get caught. But it's just how everything plays out there. You know, there's one particular kill, right? Well, let's just see the first one, and that leads to like this whole side story where it just went in directions I didn't expect, right? But I just love that at the end of the day, right? Well, I should say this one, compared to like Decision to Leave and Handmaiden, is actually pretty funny though, but very pitch black though. You know what I mean? I love pitch black humor, right? But yeah, just how it was just how unpredictable the story went, just how wild it was, how audacious it was to characters act kind of insane and do crazy shit, but it still feels logical. It still feels logical in terms of the story that Park is telling here, right? And yeah, you know, it is very it is a very bitter commentary on capitalism. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, eventually it's gonna come a point in your time where the people that you're working with not gonna care about how long you work you help them out
Right.
for. It's just like, hey, if I could get this thing to do a job better than you, then bye. And that's how it is, right? Yeah,
Right.
that works too. And that's where it leads to the end, which again caught me by surprise. Like, well, wait, that's the end? Not that I hated it,
Yeah.
but it was just like, I thought it was going to go a little bit further, but it's like, wow, like, honestly, without spoiling anything, it's like, wow, like, all this was for nothing when you really think about it, though.
Right.
Or in a sense, you
Right.
kind of get what you wanted at the end, but it's like, not what you wanted, right? Just a couple more points. Didn't know this, but this was actually a remake of a French film called The Axe, which is directed by the
Okay.
late great Costa-gavras, right? And Park Chan-wook actually gives a RIP shout out, like before the credits roll. He actually says dedicated to him. It's like, oh, okay, I didn't even know that. I honestly
Right.
have not thought about that guy's name in a long while, right? Actually, should like look back at his filmography, because if you were to ask me just at gunpoint the films that he did, I think he did Z. But that's like the only
Okay.
film I know of his. I don't really know anything much about his work. But he's a legendary French director. It's just I need to
Right.
kind of sit down and look at his work, right? But yeah, that's the story, how it just kind of touches on, just what it means to see that this is your life and this is what you're skilled at, you know what I mean? And I love how this character is like, look, I try something else, and throughout the film, people like saying, you could try something else, you could do something else. The other characters that he meet try something else, and it either works for them or didn't, right? We just kind of see how, it's like, not so much a comfort zone thing, but more like, listen, like, this is it for me, and this is what I had to do, and this is how important this shit is, right? You do understand, right? And you see how that plays out, right? But also too, just to wrap things up, the direction is strong in this too. Again, Park Chan-wook is just a master of his craft too. Just the directing choices, the way he sets the camera, blocking, all that kind of stuff is just kind of perfect in my opinion, right? So yeah, just from a directing standpoint, this is one of the best shows I've seen in a long while. From an editing standpoint, one of the best I've seen, right? And I have to mention Lee Byung-hun gives probably one of the best performances he's ever given, right? But yeah, like you, Ricardo, I wouldn't say that this is better than Parasite, right? Like, I absolutely love Parasite, right?
Right.
But I would say that, like, this show is not trying to be Parasite, but yes, the comparisons will pop up the moment that this movie starts to pick up steam, right? And I'll just close this, right? I found out after the fact that this was already submitted to the Academy Awards now. So this is going up. This is South Korea's, submission, for Best International Feature. And I have a strong feeling that this could win. Not just because it has parallels to Parasite, but because it's just so damn well made and so well written and acted and all that kind of stuff, right? And just the balance, the humor and dark moments, all that kind of stuff, it just totally works, right? So yeah, this is definitely one of the best films I've seen for the year. I'm not like over the moon with it as yet, but this is a show that I definitely need to rewatch though. And I'll tell you one time, I have a feeling that with the more viewings I give this boy, the more I will pick up on from both a technical perspective and a writing perspective as well, man. But yeah, I was genuinely surprised at how great this movie was though. And trust me, once the well, you could say technically, the Oscar race has begun, but yeah, leading up to the Oscars, believe you me, you'll be hearing a lot about this movie, So yeah, for me, rating wise, like 4.5 out of 5, but this is one of the best films of the year, bar none. I could definitely see this winning Best International Feature, next year, the Oscars, but, as far as, like, just Park Chan-wook's, filmography, yeah, this is another, like, solid entry that, like, like, I guess, like, I just really need to, like, rewatch his films, right? Like Handmaiden, Old Boy, stuff like that, right? But yeah, he, hands down, is, like, one of the best directors, like, just in world cinema, period, right? And this film kind of shows why he is, boy. So, yeah, I would say if you have not checked out his previous work, I mean, you could start off with Old Boy if you want. I mean, Old Boy is a strong start. But I would say you could start off with this film as well, too, right? But yeah, this is one of the more accessible films in his filmography. And yeah, definitely one of his best, too. But then again, yeah, is there a film? Is there, like, a film you ever put out that was trash or that was terrible? I don't think so. I really don't think so. That's just that's just the testament of how great of a filmmaker he is, right? But yeah, definitely one of the year's best, in my opinion. So when it comes out theatrically or, leading up to the Oscar season, yeah, definitely check this out. So Ricardo, your final thoughts on the film and rating.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this. As I say, same thing with you. Not as great as not as great as Parasite, but not as great as Handmaid. Handmaid was just a lot more interesting and had a better twist. And not like the classical Old Boy, but this one is up there, right? I put it about as high as the last one, right? The second one, the Trailer on the Beach. It's up there, and that was pretty well done. Yeah, I dug this. It's just a solid character piece, great performances, great direction and production, and yeah, that's about it. I had nothing as much to say, but this was pretty good. Yeah, rating, I don't know, 8 out of 10.